Have you ever had one of those moments in your life, one of those huge pivotal moments where, a loved one dies and your partner leaves you and your job ends up firing you, and next thing you know, you don't even know who you are anymore and where you're headed and what your life is and where it's all going and what you want, and you can't see the future in the way you could when you were living in a familiar routine. Suddenly all this stuff just gets uprooted in your life, and it feels like the very foundation of what you knew your life to be and who you knew yourself to be just got completely dislodged, flipped upside down, and dissolved. And now you're left completely vulnerable, where you don't know what's going to happen by the end of today. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know where you're headed. You don't know what you want. You don't know how it's going to happen if you do have an idea in your mind of what you want. And so you surrender. You give in to this transformative and seemingly chaotic moment of your life. Something that's so charged with this energy of mystery and chaos and lack of control, and you give into it. One step at a time. You take that one step at a time. And let's say a month later, or maybe a year later, you're living an entirely different life. You're living a life that's more in line and in harmony with what you really want, with your values and your vision and who you want to be and how you want to be living your life and how you want to be feeling inside. And you look back on that seemingly chaotic, tumultuous, mysterious moment a year ago or a month ago, and you realize, holy shit, that was the gateway into this life I'm living now. That chaos was necessary for me to be moved and ushered in to this life that I'm living now, which is more in line with what I really want. And when you look at it, you see, you, in your rational mind, you wouldn't have programmed all that chaos into your life. Okay, now I'm gonna have my partner leave me and my loved one's gonna die, and I'm gonna have my job fire me so that I can then be transformed inside and let go of an old identity and move into a different period, a different era of my life so that I can then be more in harmony with who I really am. The rational mind doesn't think like that. The rational mind doesn't program that stuff into its life. What the rational mind wants is familiar, routine, known, habit, rhythm. What we want to know where we're working. We want to know who we're waking up next to. We want to know what we're doing that day. I experience this thing where I go into my job and I generally have this idea of what I'm going to be doing that day. And if there's one thing that'll set me off, it's when my coworker says, hey, we're actually going to be doing something else today. And I get all flustered and weird inside. And the reason that is because I like the known. And I think we can speak generally in that humans as a whole, we like to know what's coming down the pike. We like to know where we're going to be, where we're headed, what's happening, who's going to be in our life. We like to eat the same foods, do the same activities, you know what I'm saying? Read the same books, watch the same videos, listen to the same music. We like routine and structure, because in that, it leaves no room for the variable of mystery, for the variable of change, for the variable of unknown. And why is it that that's good? Why is it that we're glad that there's no room for the unknown? It's because that unknown is the unknown. Think about it. You don't know where you're going to be tomorrow. You don't know where your life is headed. You don't know who you are. You don't know who you're going to be with. You don't know what job you're going to have or where you're going to live. You don't know when your loved ones will leave you or if you're going to die. Or the unknown is the literal embodiment of all of our fears, But see, here's the thing. The unknown is the unknown. It's formless. It's like a seed form. It's pure potential. You know, in biology, don't quote me here, I'm not sure, but you know, there's these things called stem cells where they're this sort of neutral cell that can be anything. And when it takes the form of a eye cell or a hair cell or a skin cell, then it gets this fixed role as that's the kind of cell it is, and then it multiplies as that kind of cell. But see, that sort of like quantum supercritical state where it can be anything, that's kind of like what the unknown is like. It could be anything. It could be worse, or it could be better than you could ever imagine. And see, we're not going to take that gamble. We would rather settle for a life that's familiar, that's common, that's known, that's predictable. And here's the unfortunate part. We would rather live in a horrible life so long as we know what's going to happen than step in to the mystery and embrace the unknown with the potential that it could be better than we could ever imagine. Really hear that. We would rather stay stuck in a negative rut because at least we know it, you know, at least it's familiar, than to leave it all behind and step into a completely unknown dimension of ourselves and our lives with the potential that it could be better. It could be better. Change is, if you haven't noticed yet, an integral part of nature. It's a part of life. It's completely ingrained in the system. All of us right here, we're not going to be here in 100, 120 years. All of this is going to be gone. There's going to be this echoing, reverberating memory of what was, you know? And you look at constant change, constant rhythm, day, night, the seasons, summer, fall, winter, spring. You know what I mean? Years, the earth circumnavigating the sun, the plants rising and falling, the tides coming in and going out, coming in and going out. You know, everything is oscillating. Everything is changing. And there's so many people. You probably have people in your life that are like, I'm afraid of change. Oh, I hate change. You know, I have somebody in my life that they're sort of standing on this like, I am never going to change. You can't change me. And lo and behold, they're having a hard time in life. What if change is the one thing that by making friends with change and leaning into that mystery, it expedites the process of living a life of more flow, living a life in more harmony with our purpose, with our higher vision. A vision that we might not even rationally be aware of right now. Because what we're rationally aware of is this structure of the known that we're clinging to. You know that feeling I was talking about in the beginning where it feels like your whole life is falling apart. But you just kind of let go into it, and next thing you know, you're living a whole other life. And it is magnitudes better than you could have ever imagined, and all that was required was the letting go of what once was. See, the part of what's scary about change and the unknown is that there's no foundation of who we are or what we are or where we're headed in that unknown. And what's required in letting go into that unknown is a literal ego death, a death of who we once were. You know, I have so many examples of this. Like some years ago, like I stopped smoking weed. And I stopped smoking weed like kind of against my will. I took a 3-day, I had been smoking like every single day for like 9 years. And then I took a 3-day break. And then when I went back to it, it was so powerful. It was so psychedelic and existential and trippy. And I was like, I can't do this like I used to. So the next day, I was going to take another hit, and I said to myself, if I get as high as I did yesterday, I can't do this anymore. And I took that hit, and I got as high as I did the day before, and I was like, I'm not a casual smoker anymore. I can't be a stoner. So I experienced a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety with no longer being a stoner. And why is that? It's because for the past 9 years of my life, I've been Devin the stoner. I smoke weed every day. I love bongs and dabs, and I'm a complete connoisseur of the cannabis world. And now all of a sudden I can't smoke. I'd love to smoke, but I can't because I get high out of my mind, and I don't want to do that. So what was scary and anxiety-inducing about that was that I had to let go of who I used to be. Now I'm sober Devin. I don't smoke weed. You know what I'm saying? And it's the letting go of who we used to be that's scary. And I mean, that's part of what's scary. Also, what's scary is what's to come in letting go. You know? A lot of the time in the heartbreak associated with the ending of a relationship, where that comes from is ego death. Being forced and propelled into the unknown yet again. Where if you spent the last 9 months or 9 years of your life with somebody, and you got really close and really intimate and really, you know what I'm saying, really together, you undoubtedly have developed an identity oriented around this person. An identity that includes this person. You think about how they feel when you're about to do something. You wake up and maybe they're the first person to cross your mind. You see something cool or beautiful, or you hear a song, or you see something and you think, oh my God, they would love that. Their identity becomes sort of merged and conjoined with yours. Or you become, I guess you could say, very considerate of them in your life. They become a part of your life. And then when you guys break up, now the nature and the way of things is that they are not in your life anymore. They're not a part of your life anymore. But you've been skiing down neural pathways that you've been carving for the past 9 months. And what those neural pathways are this person is in my life. Me and this person are together. Me and this person, X, Y, and Z, we're together. And now you're not. And your brain, your neurology, your psychology is going completely against the grain of what reality now is. Who you were being somebody with that person is no longer who you are. And I think a lot of the reluctance we have in moving on and becoming better and moving through it is our reluctance to let go of who we knew ourselves to be and embrace who we now are in a positive way. And it's scary. It's scary because it's like, you know, like a butterfly, a caterpillar. When it gets in the cocoon, the chrysalis, you all know the analogy. It turns to goo. It's nothing. It's just this protoplasmic, nasty nothing goo. But somehow that goo creates this constellation of cells and situates itself where it turns into a beautiful butterfly. And that goo phase, that cocoon, that chrysalis phase, that's what it can be like when our whole life is falling apart, or that person leaves us, or our job fires us, or that transformation is taking place. It's like this energetic limbo where we're nothing at the moment. We're in this in-between phase. We're growing. We're developing. We're just a bunch of goo right now. But that goo is actually intelligent. It's intelligent goo. It's going to turn into something so much more beautiful than you could ever imagine. And notice, going along the lines of the caterpillar analogy, everything about that caterpillar, everything about its drives it to go in and make this little chrysalis and hide itself in there and release enzymes that dissolve it. And who knows if that, personifying this caterpillar, that it's scared of that. It doesn't want to do that. It doesn't know why it's doing it, but it feels like it has to. And the reason it feels like it has to is because life, Gaia, knows on a deeper and more primal, visceral level than we know things, that change, that chaos, that turmoil is a necessary prerequisite to step into a life that's higher and more aligned with who we're meant to be. Nature, Gaia, knows that caterpillar needs to climb into this little chrysalis and dissolve itself into a pile of goo so that it can then be the butterfly that it's meant to be. So it can fly around beautifully and pollinate flowers and do its little thing. You know? And that's what it's like for us. We go so against the grain of nature. We try to structuralize everything, and this is how it is, and this is who I am, and I'll never change. But life is change. And what we should learn to do is to invite that change, embrace that change, lean into that change, because then you're not going to be sideswiped with a surprised Pikachu face because life changes. You live with the truth and the fact of that right on your shoulder, always, right in the back of your mind, always. Life changes. And a lot of the time, those changes are exactly what we need to grow. You think about if you're unhappy right now, which I'm assuming isn't a very far-fetched thing to say. You feel moments of unhappiness, moments of lack of fulfillment, of lack of direction, of not knowing where you're at and where it's going, what the point of it is, and you feel like shit inside. You know, I definitely do sometimes, you know? And if you're unhappy right now, and you're living in a familiar style of living, what does that mean? So you're unhappy and you're living in the familiar. You're living in your routine, your structure. And you're also saying to yourself, I'm afraid of change, I don't want change, but I'm living in a familiar pattern of my life, and I hate it, and I'm not having a good time, but oh my God, change is so scary. If what you don't like is the familiar, the structuralized familiar life that you're living, don't you think change is a prerequisite in getting out of that lifestyle? If you're unhappy, really hear that. If you're unhappy and you're living in the familiar, but you're afraid of change, don't you realize that change is the one thing that gives you even a little bit of a chance of stepping into a life of more fulfillment? Change is your key out of the prison of the familiar. But you keep telling yourself you're afraid of change and you don't know, and I don't know, my God, I don't know. I'm not going to move. I'm just going to stay at my job. I'm just going to stay in this shitty relationship. You know, I'm just going to keep eating this bad diet. No, I don't want to go to the gym. I'll never get better. You know what I'm saying? You keep living in that familiar, that rut, because it's known, and there's a sort of paradoxical comfort in that where even though you feel horrible inside, at least you know it. You're living in that and then saying, man, I wish things were different. I wish my life was better, but I'm afraid of doing what I need to do to get out of this style of living. Can you see how change, although you can't put a face to it, you can't put a name to it, you don't know if it's going to be better or worse, can you see how change is the one prerequisite in stepping out of that negative way of living into a potentially much, much better way of living? When you want to, let's say you want to be in a relationship and you're not in a relationship and you really want to be in a relationship, or you're overweight and you want to go to the gym and get better, or you want to deepen your meditation practice, or you want a job that's more aligned with what you feel to be true. You know, or you want to live in a different location. You want to live somewhere else on the planet, you know? What is the common thread between all of that needs to take place for those things to come into fruition? Change. If in your familiar you want something, what needs to happen for you to get that thing is change. You know, you talk about, oh my God, I just want a relationship, man. And then a relationship comes your way, and you get so scared because it's so unknown, it's so unfamiliar, it's so open and formless that you sabotage it and push it away. No, go away. I'm in a beautiful relationship with this person, but go away. This is scary. I want to go back to wanting a relationship. Do you see the madness in that? You know? You have a job that you don't like, and you have this vision of a job that you really would like to have. And then that opportunity comes along and says, hey man, like, we're looking for somebody just like you. Good pay, good hours, you know? It's aligned with what you're looking for. And you shoot it down because it's too unknown. It's too mysterious. I don't know what it is. We're afraid of the change. We're afraid of that transformative, transitional stuff of, I'd rather be somebody that's sad and wants a relationship than step into the excitement and anxiety, the natural anxiety of, oh my God, I'm in a relationship, here we go. Like, this is what I wanted, let's go. I would rather be somebody wanting a relationship that doesn't have it than be somebody that has a relationship and afraid of where it's going. It's like built into our minds to be afraid of change. I'd rather be somebody sitting on the couch eating junk food that's thinking, man, I really should go to the gym, than put in the work to get my ass up, go to the gym and work out and experience that sweat flowing and that energy and that burning and that pain and that repair and all of what goes with going to the gym. You know what I'm saying? We prefer our pain. A lot of the time, we prefer our pain because we know it, and we push away the opportunity of growing because we don't know where it's headed, man. We don't know what that's all about. We don't know what that entails, you know? To share with you a personal experience, some years ago, I had this like really intense breakup, and I was so heartbroken and distraught, and I was sad for months and months and months. I was sad for 2 years. There's a whole era of my YouTube channel that's me sad, you know? But I remember I was just sad as hell, and in the same way that when you're with somebody, your identity grows around them, it orients around them being in your life. When I grieved as long as I did when this person had left me, my identity sort of calcified around that, where I am somebody who is sad that this person left me. That was my identity. I wore it like a coat. I wore it around and I strutted around being somebody that's sad and grieving that this person left me, and oh my God, if only they would come back. You know? It was who I became. And then I remember one day I woke up and I experienced this window of liberation where I didn't care that she was gone. It didn't bother me. It was okay. It was actually kind of cool. It was alright that she's okay. It's not a big deal. And it felt amazing. It felt awesome. But what did I do? Did I embrace that? Did I lean into it? Did I invite it in and say, yes, I'm moving on. I'm finally moving out of this? Nope. What I did was I said, oh my God. And I friggin' I remember I went out into the woods and I played music that me and this girl had listened to together and forced myself to cry about it. Now, why did I do that? Because that window of liberation where I didn't care that she was in my life or not, I didn't care that she left, that perspective had so little to do with who I thought I was. Because who I thought I was somebody that was distraught that this person had left me. So when I experienced that moment of not caring that she left me, it went so against the grain of who I thought I was that I ran as fast as I could back into my pain, where I'm not ready to let go. I'm not ready to be done grieving. I'm going to go and force myself to cry and be miserable again because that's more in line with my ego. So can you see how the ego, it doesn't have our best interest in mind. What it wants is stability, even if that stability hurts like hell. That window of liberation I experienced was ecstatic. It was ecstasy. It was bliss. It was peace. Peace is a better way to describe it. I was at peace, finally. And all those months previously of heartbreak. You all know what heartbreak feels like if you've been through a legitimate one. It's horrible, and you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy, you know? But I preferred that over peace because that heartbreak and horribleness was more in line, it was more congruent with my ego, with who I thought I was. So the ego is the downfall here. And that's why moving into the unknown, stepping into the unknown, that's why you could call it an ego death, because your ego's not gonna like it, man. I mean, once you kind of get the hint and you've been let in on the secret that, hey man, this change you're experiencing, this transformative, chaotic, tumultuous life that you're experiencing right now, this is what starts to happen when you're about to shift, when you're about to level up, when you're about to move into a different era of your life. Your ego will catch wind of that, and it will start to get excited. It'll start to get excited and anticipatory. It'll encourage change. It'll start to lean into that change. You'll start to realize that, and that doesn't mean it's not going to be scary still. By no means do I mean that when you start to realize that this change is a good thing, it's not going to be scary anymore. No, it's going to be scary. Your ego's going to kick and wiggle and squirm, and it's still going to prefer its pain because at least it knows it. It's still going to prefer its old job and its old bad relationship and its old toxic bad habits because at least it knows it. But you're going to start to realize eventually that this chaotic energy of change and mystery, that is the breeding grounds for self-transformation. That's where all the magic happens. If you're living in the familiar, which I'd assume you are, and you're not happy, this is what I said earlier. If you're living in the familiar and you're not happy, what do you think needs to happen to that familiar for you to be happy? It needs to change. And when it changes, you're no longer living in the familiar. You're living in change. You're living in the unknown. You're embracing the unknown. You know, I've heard it put before that, like, the seed is just this little seed, man. It's just doing its thing, but then it gets buried in the ground in the dark, where it's cold and dark and wet and nasty. You know, and it's out of that environment of darkness that the seed is able to germinate, that the embryo wakes up and grows. You know? This entire universe, this entire manifested physical universe, where's it all going down? It's all going down in the playing field of the unknown, in literal black infinite nothingness. That black infinite unknown nothingness is the womb, it's the thing that holds all of the stuff. It holds all of the stuff. So when you start to experience a moment of your life of mystery, of unknown, of you don't see where it's going, get ready, man. Get ready, because your life is about to change. Your life is about to change. You're about to shed, like a snake shedding its skin, you're about to shed an old identity and step into a new era of your life. And this is the kind of stuff that years down the road, you talk about your journey. We're experiencing our journey right now. How's that journey going to happen? How's that legacy going to happen if there isn't hard, challenging times along the way? You know, rocks in the path. How are you going to talk from a place of liberation and transformation and empowerment if you didn't have to go through the friggin' ringer of what it takes to become empowered? So this video is to tell you to embrace that change, step into that change. When your life feels like it's falling apart, yes, it's gonna be scary, it's gonna suck, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna be nasty, it's gonna feel bad, you're gonna wish it was how it used to be because you knew it back then. But realize, start to get this little whisper in the back of your head that this change is what ushers in a higher way of being. A higher level of being, a higher vibration. This change is the one prerequisite that's required for you to step into a higher life. to step into a more beautiful and a life that's more aligned with what you want and who you are. All that's required is the death of who you used to be, of who you no longer are. And I say all that's required as if it's simple. It's simple, but it's hard because it's scary, and a lot goes down in that period of transformation. All that's required is letting go of who you no longer are, letting go of what no longer serves you, stepping into a whole new way of being, literally like a baby being born who is just in this womb of darkness and warmth and safety, and suddenly it's cold out in the open, screaming, wailing, and there's this entire world around it. But that's what's required for that baby to grow into the potential of who he or she is meant to be. What's required is change. Life is change. Life is movement. Life is flow. So get in touch with that flow. Get in tune with that flow. Invite change. Get excited about your life changing. Because you're just going to stay in the same spot for the rest of your life if you don't change. And honestly, you can't not change. Everything about this is naturally changed. So are you going to go with the flow? Or are you going to kick and scream and fight against the current the whole way through? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you did enjoy, consider leaving a like so that this video can get recommended to other people like you. I will see you all later.